She never wanted this marriage until the billionaire revealed the truth. The rain hammered against the attorney's office window like accusations Sienna couldn't escape. She sat rigid in the leather chair, her fingers twisted together so tightly her knuckles had gone white. 22 years old, and her entire world had collapsed in the span of 3 months. First came her father's heart attack, then the revelation that Hart Industries was drowning in debt. Then Victoria Ashford appeared like a vulture circling wounded prey. "Sign here," Victoria said, sliding papers across the mahogany desk. Her aunt by marriage, though the woman had never shown her an ounce of warmth. "Julian Cross has agreed to absorb all company debts. In exchange, you become his wife." Sienna stared at the contract. The words blurred together. Marriage, transfer of assets, legal binding agreement. "I don't even know him," she whispered. "You don't need to know him," Victoria replied coldly. "You need to save your family's legacy. Or would you prefer bankruptcy, homelessness? This is generosity, Sienna. Learn to recognize it." But Sienna recognized something else entirely. Imprisonment. Julian Cross was a name whispered in boardrooms with equal parts respect and fear. Self-made billionaire, corporate strategist, a man who rebuilt collapsed empires with surgical precision. At 51, he commanded attention without effort. She had seen his photograph in financial magazines, silver threading through dark hair, eyes like winter frost, a face carved from determination and secrets. Why would someone like that want to marry her? The wedding happened too quickly. No engagement period, no courtship, just efficient planning by people who treated romance like a business transaction. Sienna stood in the bridal suite of an exclusive hotel, staring at her reflection. The gown was exquisite, champagne silk with pearl beading that caught the light like trapped stars. Her blonde hair had been swept into an elegant updo. Professional makeup masked the shadows under her eyes. She looked like a bride. She felt like a sacrifice. 5 minutes, someone called through the door. Her hands trembled as she lifted the veil. Through the delicate lace, the world looked softer, less real. She wished she could stay behind this barrier forever. The ceremony was small, exclusive. Victoria smiled like she had orchestrated a masterpiece. Business associates filled the seats, not friends or family. Sienna walked down the aisle alone because there was no one left to give her away. Julian waited at the altar. When their eyes met, she expected coldness, calculation. Instead, she found something unexpected. Careful attention, as if he was truly seeing her, not just acquiring her. He was taller than she expected, imposing in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her college tuition. But his expression wasn't cruel, just controlled, unreadable. "Sienna," he said quietly when she reached him. Not Miss Hart, not his future asset, just her name, spoken with surprising gentleness. She managed a nod. Her throat had closed around any words she might have offered. The vows were traditional, spoken by rote. When Julian slipped the ring onto her finger, his touch was warm, steady. Nothing about it felt possessive. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant announced. Julian hesitated, then leaned in slowly, giving her time to prepare. His lips brushed hers with restrained courtesy. Nothing demanding, nothing claiming. It was over in seconds. But Sienna's heart pounded like she had been running for miles. The reception blurred past, champagne toasts, forced smiles, conversations she didn't hear. Julian remained at her side, a silent presence that somehow felt protective rather than threatening. When the evening finally ended, a car took them to his estate outside the city. The mansion rose from manicured grounds like something from a dream. Glass and stone architecture, lighting that made it glow against the darkness. Beautiful, isolated, a gilded cage. "Your room is on the second floor," Julian said as they entered the foyer. "East wing. Everything has been prepared for your comfort." Sienna looked at him sharply. "My room?" "Yes." His expression remained calm. "I thought you would prefer your Own space. But we're... She couldn't finish the sentence. Married, he completed. Yes. But that doesn't mean I have any expectations for tonight, or any night, unless you decide otherwise. She stared at him, searching for manipulation, for hidden meaning. But his gaze held steady. Honest. I don't understand, she whispered. Julian stepped closer. Not too close, respectful of the distance she clearly needed. Sienna, I know how this marriage came about. I know you didn't choose it. I won't add to that burden by forcing intimacy you haven't offered freely. Then why agree to this arrangement at all? Something flickered across his features, old pain perhaps. Because sometimes we make choices that don't make sense to anyone but ourselves. Because your aunt approached me, and when I saw your photograph, I remembered something I had lost. Not you specifically, just the possibility of connection. Sienna's breath caught. This wasn't what she expected. Not coldness, not demands, but something far more dangerous, humanity. I should show you to your room, he continued, his voice returning to neutral territory. She followed him up the curved staircase. Her dress whispered against marble steps. The hallway stretched long and elegant, with artwork she couldn't appreciate. Through her exhaustion and confusion, Julian opened a door near the end. Everything you might need has been provided. If something is missing, just ask. The room took her breath away. Soft blues and creams, a canopy bed with silk sheets, fresh flowers on the dresser, windows overlooking gardens she couldn't fully see in the darkness. It felt designed for her, though they had never discussed her preferences. Thank you, she managed. He nodded once. Good night, Sienna. Sleep well. Then he was gone, closing the door gently behind him. Sienna stood motionless in the center of the room. Her wedding gown suddenly felt too heavy, too tight. She unzipped it with shaking hands, letting it pool around her feet like spilled moonlight. A silk robe she found laid out on the bed. She walked to the window. The ground stretched endlessly. Somewhere in this vast house, Julian occupied his own space, separate, waiting for nothing from her. She had prepared herself for violation, for pain, for becoming property. Instead, she had been given sanctuary. Sienna pressed her palm against the cool glass and let herself cry. Not from fear this time, from something more complicated. Relief, confusion, and the terrifying awareness that the man she had been forced to marry might not be the villain she needed him to be. That realization scared her more than any alternative, because monsters were simple to hate. But kindness required something far more dangerous. It required her to hope again. Morning arrived gently. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, painting warm patterns across unfamiliar walls. For a moment, Sienna forgot where she was. Then reality settled over her, like a weight. She was married. She lived in Julian Cross's mansion. Her life had fundamentally changed, but she was still herself, still breathing, still whole. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Mrs. Cross? A woman's voice, polite and professional. Breakfast is being served in the sunroom whenever you're ready. No rush. Mrs. Cross. The name felt foreign. Sienna dressed in simple clothes she found in the closet. Someone had stocked it with options in her exact size. Casual pieces, nothing restrictive or performative. Whoever chose these items had actually considered her comfort. The sunroom took her breath away. Glass walls overlooked gardens now visible. In daylight, roses climbed trellises. A fountain bubbled peacefully. And at a small table sat Julian, reading a newspaper with reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked different in morning light, less intimidating, almost approachable. Good morning, he said, glancing up. I hope you slept well. I did, actually. She surprised herself with the honesty. Please, sit. Mrs. Chen makes exceptional coffee. The table held fresh fruit, pastries, eggs, and various breakfast options. More food than two people could reasonably eat. Sienna selected toast and tea, her appetite still uncertain. They ate in comfortable silence. Julian didn't force conversation, didn't ask probing questions, just shared the space peacefully. Finally, Sienna spoke. "Why are you being kind to me?" Julian set down his coffee cup carefully. "Would you prefer I wasn't?" "I just don't understand." "The strategy." "There is no strategy, Sienna. I'm simply treating you the way any person deserves to be treated." "But you bought me," she said bluntly. "You paid off my family's debts in exchange for a wife. That's not kindness. That's a transaction." He flinched slightly. "You're right. The arrangement itself was transactional. But how I conduct myself within that arrangement is still my choice. I choose respect." "Why?" Julian removed his glasses, meeting her gaze directly. 20 years ago, I was engaged to someone I loved deeply. Elena. She was brilliant, passionate, full of life. Then she got sick. Lymphoma. I threw every resource I had at fighting it. The best doctors. Experimental treatments. Nothing worked. She died 3 months before our wedding. Sienna's breath caught. "I'm sorry. I buried myself in work afterward. Built an empire as a monument to my grief. Told myself relationships were distractions, vulnerabilities. For 20 years, I lived that way. Then your aunt approached me with this proposal, and I saw your photograph. You looked lost, scared, exactly how Elena looked when she got her diagnosis. And I thought, maybe this time I could do better. Maybe I could offer protection instead of standing helplessly while someone suffers." Tears burned Sienna's eyes. This wasn't what she expected. Not manipulation. Just raw, honest pain from someone who understood loss. "I'm not a replacement for her," she whispered. "I know. You're Sienna, your own person, with your own story. I'm not looking for Elena's ghost. I'm offering you space to heal from whatever brought you to that attorney's office looking so defeated." They sat in heavy silence. Then Sienna asked the question burning inside her. "What happens now?" "Whatever you want to happen. This is your home. You're free to explore, to pursue interests, to simply exist without judgment. I work from home most days, but I won't intrude on your space. If you ever want company, I'm available. If you prefer solitude, I respect that completely. And if I never—" She couldn't finish. "If intimacy never develops between us, then we live as respectful roommates in a very large house. I won't pressure you, Sienna. Not ever." Something cracked, open inside her chest. The terror she had carried since signing those papers began fragmenting, not disappearing, but shifting into something more manageable. The weeks that followed established unexpected rhythms. Julian kept his word about space. He worked in his study most mornings, took calls in his office, left her to discover the house at her own pace. But gradually, they began orbiting each other more intentionally. She found him in the library one afternoon, surrounded by first editions. They discussed favorite books. He listened intently when she spoke about losing herself in stories as a child. He discovered her playing piano in the music room, sat quietly in the doorway until she noticed him, asked if he could listen. She played Chopin, and he closed his eyes like he was absorbing something sacred. They started taking walks through the gardens each evening. Easy conversation about nothing important. Weather, favorite foods, childhood memories, building foundations slowly. One night, a storm knocked out power. They lit candles and sat in the library sharing wine. Julian told her about building his first company, the mistakes he made, the lessons learned. Sienna shared her fears about losing her father's legacy, about feeling like she had failed him. "You didn't fail anyone," Julian said firmly. "You carried an impossible burden. You're allowed to let someone else help bear the weight." She cried then. Really cried for the first time since her father's death. And Julian simply handed her tissues. Didn't try to fix it. Didn't minimize her pain. Just witnessed it with compassion. That was the night something shifted. Sienna started seeking his presence instead of avoiding it. She brought her book to his, study and read while he worked. He showed her his rare book collection, and explained what made each volume special. They cooked dinner together, laughing when neither knew what they were doing. 3 months into their marriage, Sienna realized. She no longer flinched when he entered a room. She relaxed when he was near, found herself disappointed when business trips took him away. She was falling in love with her husband. The realization terrified and thrilled her equally. One evening she found him on the terrace watching sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. She stood beside him, close enough their shoulders nearly touched. "Julian?" "Yes?" "Thank you for being patient with me." He turned toward her, genuine warmth in his expression. "Sienna, you never needed patience. You needed time. There's a difference." She reached for his hand, laced their fingers together. His grip tightened gently, reverently. "I think I'm ready," she whispered. "Ready for what?" "To be your wife, really your wife." Julian cupped her face with both hands. "Are you certain? Because I never want you to feel obligated." She kissed him, soft at first, then deeper, pouring months of gratitude and growing affection into the gesture. When they pulled apart, Julian's eyes glimmered with emotion. "I've fallen in love with you, Sienna Hart-Cross, completely, irrevocably." "I love you too," she breathed. "I never thought I could, but you made it safe." They stood wrapped in each other as stars emerged overhead. Two wounded people who had found unexpected healing in an impossible situation. The marriage that began as a business transaction had transformed into something genuine, beautiful, real. Sienna had entered this union believing she was losing everything. Instead, she discovered that sometimes the most unlikely beginnings lead to the most extraordinary love stories. And as Julian held her close, she finally understood. She wasn't trapped. She was home. If this story touched your heart even just a little, if you believe that kindness can heal and that love can grow from the most unexpected places, then don't forget to hit that hype button and subscribe to Everyverse Stories for more powerful tales that remind us what truly matters. We share real emotional and inspiring stories that speak to the soul. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that move the world. Subscribe, hit, and stay with us for stories that heal. This is Everyverse Stories. See you in the next one.